Hey, y'all, it's Orlando. We just want to let you know that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast episode are those of the co-hosts and guests and not their sponsoring institutions. Now, let's start the show. Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to a special episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the beautiful Mackinac Island here at the Regional Chamber's Policy Conference. This episode is brought to you by Ford Foundation, and we are a content partner to BridgeDetroit.com. I'm Orlando Bailey, and my special guest co-host today is Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Stephen Henderson. Stephen is the founder and executive editor of BridgeDetroit.com, host of Detroit Today on WDET, and anchor of American Black Journal on Detroit Public Television. Stephen, what is it that you don't do? It's nice to have you guys hosting with us, Stephen.
I just have lots of curiosity, that's all. That leads you to lots of work.
Thanks for coming on again, Stephen. It's been a while since we've had you on.
I haven't had the privilege of sitting in this seat for a long time. I love the work you guys do at Authentically Detroit, though, and I'm always like, I wish I was part of that conversation.
Well, I'm so glad. It's a huge compliment when Stephen likes your stuff. Donna is not feeling the best, so we are sending her good vibes and prayers. So we thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build platforms for authentic voices for real people in Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. Joining us is Darnell Adams. Darnell is the director of Detroit Community Initiatives at the Gilbert Family Foundation. He also served as the director of inventory at the Detroit Land Bank Authority and worked on the financing side with Invest Detroit. And he's also a graduate of Warren Connor Development Coalition University. Darnell Adams, welcome to, I can't believe I'm saying this to you for the first time.
I know.
Welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Thank you. It is a pleasure.
Why haven't you come on? What have you been doing with your life?
I didn't get the invite. No.
Don't say that.
No, I don't. No, I just been busy.
Yeah.
Been real busy.
So you are shepherding a huge purse with the Gilbert Family Foundation. What is it? Upwards of what? $350 million that you are responsible for dispersing into communities and neighborhoods in the city of Detroit. Talk about the weight of that responsibility and how you approach it as a born and raised Detroiter, an East Sider.
Okay. The weight?
Yeah.
So I remember my first dinner that I had with the team, and they said to me, it was actually James Fegan. He said, how does it feel to
Another
be...
Warren Connor graduate.
That's right. Yeah, Maggie just, spits out all the
I don't know
strong
about
people.
Maggie DeSanders. Man.
All good things lead back to Maggie.
No, I remember at that dinner, he said, how does it feel to be the $500 million guy? And because, there's a joint investment between Rocket Community Fund and the Gilbert Family Foundation, but I didn't even think about it like that. For me, it was more like, we have some money to do some real disruption across Detroit. And the weight has gradually continued to sort of pile on because I'm getting so many requests for meetings and ideas, and it's just a lot, but it's good, heavy work, right? I think oftentimes people feel exhausted from their jobs and their day-to-days, but when I'm tired, it's okay, because this is exactly where I wanted to be. I set out a path that got me to be where I am today, and it wasn't an easy path. It required a lot of learning and research and navigating and understanding how different sectors and systems across the Detroit ecosystem work. And now I'm on this side of the table to start helping provide the resources that are actually necessary to get the work started.
You used a really interesting word there. $500 million to disrupt across Detroit. I want you to take that word and open it up for us. What do you mean?
So when you think about the systems that are currently in play from, capital, real estate, home ownership, crime, anything, right? Anything that is really churning the wheels of cities, they've not always worked to uplift communities. And so, from my work at Warren Connor, gonna take this back real quick. For my work as a community organizer, like being on the ground and walking the streets with residents, looking at the problems, figuring out like what is a solution here, and not having one because there was no one to like come save us or no one to come provide the resources for us to fix these problems. It was frustrating. It continues to be frustrating because it's, while there is significant investment happening across the city, there are still a lot of neighborhoods that are being left behind or are waiting to have that investment realized. So, there I saw the problem, and I saw other issues around like how philanthropy approaches nonprofits and, help them to do their, focus on their mission. And so, again, like I set out to be here. But as I left Warren Connor, I went to the land bank, and I just sort of watched how things were being done across the city and decided, like, we need to change the policy here. We shouldn't just be making these very significant decisions in communities without community input. Great example, like Gladstone Block Club. I remember driving through the community. All these homes were set up to be demolished. And I said, well, we had this organization earlier in the year come to us and ask if they could, take some houses and showcase them. It went okay. Let's talk to the Gladstone Block Club. Let's see if they will take these 14 houses in this neighborhood. We'll give them the houses. We'll let them, create an open house for their community, their families. And do you know, like, all those homes that were slated for demolition, out of the 17 houses, 14 were sold to families.
Wow.
14. There is real power in community. There's real power in people if you give them the opportunity. And so what I've tried to do is provide access to change how organizations, whether it's government, whether it's private capital or philanthropy, it's just we have to create access points so people can help really drive the change that's necessary across the city.
And so that's the disruption piece, actually listening to Detroiters and what they have to say,
absolutely,
and honoring their expertise. Your journey is an interesting one, and I sort of want you to walk us through this journey, starting at a community development not-for-profit, working for a quasi-governmental agency. I always say this, Stephen, I don't think anybody knows the city, like in terms of just pure land mass, 139 square miles better than Darnell Adams, because he was the director of inventory for the land bank, responsible for dispersing upwards of 90,000 parcels at the time in the inventory, or was it a little more than that?
It was the peak for me was 99,938.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you for fact checking me. And then you went over to the community development financial services side with Invest Detroit, and now you're in philanthropy. Talk about this journey. You say you charted it out. Was all of this intentional?
In my mind, I think it was like subconsciously my mind was driving me in this direction. So when I got to the land bank, Detroit was, sort of like coming out of a recession, or I call it a depression. We lost a lot of generational wealth. We lost a lot of assets, had a lot of vacancies across the city. And, but we were putting things back together. We were trying to figure out how to create the tools to punch energy back into the heart of Detroit for the real estate market. And Decantee Men's Cole was my director at the time, and she said to me, I need a strategy to figure out how we're going to put these houses back together, or like put them back to the market. And so before I was able to have a better grip on the demolition inventory, because I really wanted to make sure that we weren't tearing down property that should not have been torn down, I built an actual scope that helped us identify what's salvageable versus what isn't salvageable. But I also developed a market strategy for the entire land bank that I think is still in practice until they run out of inventory, which, will happen someday. And so there, I felt like by the time 2018 rolled around, enough energy had been put at the land bank where they were nimble enough to provide inventory to different programs, to communities that were asking for it to be put up for sale, that I could now go on. And I was watching the market values around the city begin to shift, and I said, well, what's a community without a place to grow a business, start a business, play, live, like just be home. You don't have to drive across 8 Mile because, Orlando knows better than anybody. I do not like to go across 8 Mile. I don't like my money to leave Detroit.
Ever.
Ever. I like my money to be right inside of Detroit because it's important that circulation occurs at home and not out there. So, feeling confident, I left to go over to Invest Detroit where they were doing, working on the SNF, Strategic Neighborhood Fund, the private partnership with the city, and I was working on commercial corridor development and working with BIPOC developers, giving them the technical assistance that they needed in order to thrive and succeed. 6 Mile and McNichols, like that was my playground. Like all those developments happening there, like I feel privileged to have touched every single one of them and also potentially provide generational wealth to those developers who are going to see those assets come online for those communities, creating jobs, like all those
Black developers.
Yes, very specific. Yes, thank you. And it was just it was amazing to just sort of watch the transformation of neighborhoods. But the one thing that didn't exist necessarily was community input was in the planning studies, but it wasn't in the developments. And so Invest Detroit, which is just one of the most incredible companies in the city, they were a partner of the city acquiring assets and then RFP, like doing a request for proposal.
Bidding them out.
Bidding them out to anybody, but we were intentional about we wanted black. We wanted black developers. And it was great, but then there was this component where there was no updates to the community about what's happening with these projects. So we started to charge the developers with engaging with the community, like letting them know what's coming, asking them what makes sense, asking them if this is a right fit for them. And I think it was I got a little bit before the curve because I got to Invest Detroit when some of this was already done. But as we continued to acquire inventory and bid it out, I was very intentional about how community was engaged. So the quick example I would give is a building on the east side, developer Eddie Carrington, which
the East Warren Corridor.
East Warren Corridor. So we acquired a building, RFP'd it, but instead of just selecting a developer, we created an entire advisory committee that was comprised of East English Village Neighborhood Association, Morningside Neighborhood Association, Cornerstone Neighborhood Association, East Warren DevCo, and then we had a municipal side. I didn't really care about the municipal side. I did, but I didn't. And then you had Invest Detroit sort of sitting in the middle. And what we wanted was for the advisory side to help inform what will it take to say yes to a developer. What do you want? What do you need? And so I developed a really brief criteria or curriculum where I took the entire advisory committee, showed them what a performer was, what it takes to make a project work, looking at market studies that were produced for that quarter.
How to get a deal done. How to get a deal done.
How to get a deal done. And so they were armed and they interviewed every single developer.
Wow.
And they criticized all these developers. They did. I mean, it was like, when I tell you the people, it was scary, and it was a disruption to the flow of how capital goes into communities and how institutions make decisions. Dave B. at Invest Detroit and Carrie, LaJuan Monroe, they trusted me to shepherd this initiative because it was a scary territory for any institution to enter. You're giving power to the community to make decisions about investments. Anyway, so it was a very powerful process that the city then adopted themselves, and they continued to implement. And so we basically showed them the process, and they took it.
All right. We're in a home repair crisis here in the city of Detroit. U of M Poverty Solutions have given us the numbers. It is quite clear that folks are struggling to keep up their homes, and folks are living in derelict properties. So not too long ago, the Gilbert Family Foundation announced a home repair fund, and you've been piloting some partnerships with some community development organizations, ECN being one of them. Talk to us about what that looks like, and how many people are you going to be able to help?
That's a fantastic question. That, to the latter half of that depends on who else wants to help me with this work. But right now, the goal is to touch at least minimum 1,000 households across the city with a $20 million program launch. I look at this as a sort of a foundational lay of investment that will attract additional funding, whether it's federal, whether it's philanthropy, whether it's even the city, to add on to this. But when we launched the Detroit Tax Relief Fund in 2021, which paid back the taxes of Detroiters who were at risk of tax foreclosure, we also deployed a survey asking them what's necessary, what do you need next, right? And so when you think about housing stability, I can help you stay in your home, but what's the point if you're one home repair away from walking away from the house? And so home repair rose to the top as the number one next thing needed. And so it was urgent. It was urgent. It was urgent that it got out the door as fast as it got out of the door. And so we partnered with ProMedica, DTE, Enterprise Community Partners, and Rocket Community Fund, and we put together a program that basically allows gap funding to be used with the DTE EEA program. So DTE has their energy measures that they put into homes, but if someone needs a furnace or a hot water tank, but there's a hole in the roof, that investment can't be made.
Sure.
And so this program allows that roof to be put on the home, but at the same time, if that leak caused significant damage to the ceilings in the attic and the drywall, we can replace that too, paint it and everything. That way now you can get insulation. So basically it's a program that allows resources to be leveraged on top of themselves so that you can create this sort of capital stack of whole home repair. The U of M study you're referring to, the 8,500 households across the city, we got 120,000 phone calls the very first day we launched this program.
And you can only help 1,000 people so far, and you got 120,000
calls.
The need is great.
And so, while not every single call was a unique call, it showed the urgency of the program need. And so we are working with a lot of the DTE EEA partners. So I won't name them all, but of course you mentioned ECN, you have Wayne Metro, UCHC, Matrix Human Services, EcoWorks, and I'm missing one or two other organizations. But the point is, people are all in. They're like, this is what we've needed. And we didn't do, from the philanthropic standpoint, we didn't onesie-twoie, you do this home repair, we'll give you $1,000 for staffing. It's no, let's give you actual staffing capacity, because from a philanthropic lens, actually, back up, from a community, a grassroots nonprofit level, when I was at ECN, I could see how we were trying to make money stretch because we didn't have enough capacity dollars, operating dollars. We had program dollars. Yeah. And so we wanted to make sure that as we're working with these partners, we're actually giving them the capacity to deploy these programs and engage their residents in a way that is meaningful and certain, right? Because if you are getting onesie-twosie dollars here and there, you can't really hire anybody. No one's going to take that role. No one's going to be invested long term. So we wanted to make sure that was a possibility.
All right. So one of the things that's really frustrating to watch happen right now is the growth of value in real estate in lots of places in Detroit. And then to think of all the people, black people mostly in Detroit, who have lost their houses in the last 5-10 years, right? So these are people who, if they were in those houses, they would be benefiting from this growth, right? That's how we build wealth.
That's right.
In America. And it's all happening so fast now, right? Every 6 months, the numbers look really different than they did before. So I guess my question is, how do we make sure that we can actually bridge that gap? The gap is actually getting wider, it feels like, right? The attainability for black families in neighborhoods is dissipating really quickly as prices just skyrocket, and as the banks are still a little too much on the sidelines in terms of lending. So I feel like that's like a crisis, like an urgent kind of crisis, because it's happening now, it's happening fast. But I don't know what you do about it. Those families, a lot of them are still here. Now they're renters, right? They didn't leave. They just don't own. So how do we deal them in to this great surge, which, those of us who are middle-class homeowners in the city, we're experiencing it. We're getting it. They are not.
That's right. And rent is getting more expensive.
And rent's
Sure
getting more
is.
expensive.
Let me
right?
tell you.
Right.
I'm renting.
Yeah.
It's not a fun.
They're going to lose those homes because they can't stay in them.
That's right.
I mean, what do we do?
Man, I've had so many conversations with so many people in the positions of power to start thinking more strategically about that, especially on the rental side. But from a home ownership side, I remember hearing the neighborhood just adjacent to Morningside, right at Alter and between Alter and Chalmers, East Warren to Chandler Park. Someone was like, "Oh man, home values are $106,000 in my neighborhood. $106,000. That's not a good sign. I mean, that's a great sign for growing equity, but it just, to your point, that gap just got bigger.
It's
right?
widening.
And so we need to just. So I did an interview with Rocker Community Fund. It was like 5 questions with Director Darnell from Gilbert Family Foundation. One of the things that I said is we have to start writing these sub $100,000 mortgages. Just have to, right? So because what's happening, there are some beautiful neighborhoods in Detroit that are not at the 100,000, 200,000, fully like street walled in place. Every house is occupied, beautiful parks in play, but they can't get a mortgage. And so what you're seeing is a home that is actually in good shape, that would be great for affordable home ownership, and have some air quotes up because it's like, it shouldn't be air quotes, it's just true. That same person who's paying $1,000 a month could buy a home for $40,000,
right, and pay less,
and
mortgage wouldn't be there,
right, and use that money to buy a car, afford the insurance they need to find a different job. It just...
The imperative is on the bank system, too. I mean, and the assessors, because, I'm also inclined to believe that there are certain parts in the city of Detroit that you're naming that is at or beneath that $100,000 level that are being devalued by assessors in a systematic way, and it's like
or just denied by the banks who won't write mortgages at all in those areas.
Yeah, because they do an appraisal, and the appraisal says that
it's not worth.
Well, yeah, I mean they say that, but I think there needs to be a shift to, and there are some banks that are out here doing it already. I'll say that. I'll preface it by saying that there needs to be more of us out there doing this work. But what's happening is those $40,000 affordable homes for a prospective homeowner are being bought up by investors who are renting those homes out for the $1,000, $1,100,
Right.
And then what you're doing is you're disrupting the social fabric of a community, because if that is a transient family, if they are stretching to make that $1,000 payment and get displaced, now there's a new family in there, and it's just like this revolving issue that starts to potentially hurt the community long term.
Yeah.
And so I would just love to see more institutions begin writing. There's been a lot of press about this too in the last year.
Yeah.
More institutions writing the sub 100,000 mortgages.
Here's a crazy idea. We're talking about reparations right now.
We love Stephen's crazy ideas.
I'm a guest on this show, so I can say whatever I want. We have all these people who lost homes, right? Lost homes to tax foreclosure or outright foreclosure, whatever. We're talking about reparations in the city for the first time. What if we handed all of those families who lost their homes $50,000 to buy a home in Detroit, and had a bank say, we will finance those mortgages with your $50,000? Imagine imagine how much of that gap that we're just all talking about we would make up in a relatively short period of time.
I don't disagree. I think
this is probably also why they don't let me run nonprofits and give away money.
No, for sure. But
he made it sound so easy.
But it can be.
It can be.
One thing that someone once said to me that stuck with me, someone that we all know, a very prominent figure in the city of Detroit, And anyway, this person said, if humans made it, humans can fix it. If humans created it, humans can fix it. And so I really think that if we created something that is broken, we should be able to fix it. So it can be that simple. But the reparations task force that has been created, that CREO will oversee.
Civil Rights and Inclusion Office.
Yes, sorry. Civil Rights, Inclusion, Opportunity Office, which I'm a former Human Rights Commissioner for District 4. I hope to see some of that birthed out of that task force, because you're exactly right. Like, people will be benefiting today if they still have their homes. And the city is working on different initiatives. Like, I would love to see a down payment assistance program. And if you are a victim of this overtaxation, then maybe you qualify for up to X number of dollars that you can add to a down payment for a home. And so it fills that gap, right?
All right. We got a little bit under a minute left. I want to ask you about the eviction fund announcement that was just announced. Talk about that and how many people can you help? How much money is in the fund? How much are you trying to raise? How many people will benefit?
So we have put in $12 million. We funded 3 different organizations to help provide counsel to tenants who are who are at risk of eviction. We would love to have more funders come to the table. The city has already committed $6 million to this fund. We're putting another $1 million on top of that to go towards the evaluation to see the efficacy of this work.
Yeah.
But it will help at least 6,000 residents a year. Maybe more, but the goal is to continue providing equitable opportunities where you have landlords that have representation 83% of the time when it's time to go to court versus 4% of the tenants.
Who are people supposed to call, Darnell Adams? Who they call for this help?
So there are 3 organizations that residents can call. They can call Michigan Lakeshore Legal Aid.
Okay.
They can call
United Community.
Yeah, UCHC, and then they can also
Coalition.
call Michigan Legal Aid.
Okay. All right. Darnell Adams, Director of Detroit Community Initiatives at the Gilbert Family Foundation. Thank you for coming on Authentically Detroit. It took you long enough.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good to see you, man.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Darnell.
Likewise. Bye.
All right. All right, welcome back to Authentically Detroit. Joining us is the Director of Planning and Development for the City of Detroit, Antoine Bryant, and the President CEO of Detroit LISC, Camille Walker-Banks. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, gentlemen.
Yes, we're excited to have you back, Antoine. Last time it was you and I, and we, it was a one-on-one. It was pretty hot. How you feeling?
I'm feeling just fine.
You back in the hot seat?
I've had enough time to heal. I'm good.
I was nice, right?
No, it's fine.
Camille Walker-Banks, this is your first time on the podcast.
Yes.
How's it going?
It's going well.
So you are creeping up on what? How many months at LISC now?
Almost 7 months.
Almost 7 months. So
Almost a pro.
not even a year. Wow. Talk to us about what your strategy is for investment in Detroit neighborhoods from LISC. I know that you've been there a while. You haven't really talked to media as you were trying to get the lay of the land, but I know you're looking at economic development and housing, all sorts of things. Talk to us about what you're doing.
So I'm so glad to be here, and thank you for having me, and thank you for caring.
Yeah.
So what we've been doing is, for many years, investing in housing, preserving housing, creating housing. I mean, we're in a crisis right now. Affordable housing is really where we need to focus our energy, and LISC has been focused in that area for many years. The team currently at LISC, they know this. We have the 0% home program. We have our construction and working with real estate program. We have lending available for small businesses. and for housing projects. No, we don't want to call them projects. Housing development. But now, so we have that under wraps. We know how to do that. We have a Detroit Housing for the Future Fund, $65 million. We're investing in, BIPOC-led opportunities, so giving everybody a chance to get in this game. I mean, because as I mentioned, we're in crisis mode, so we need all hands on deck. But evolving the economic development strategy. We have these centers for family, working family sites all across the city. And we see 4,500 people a year at those centers. But at the end of the day, we're trying to build wealth in Detroit. I mean, everybody wants some, right? So let's give everyone an opportunity to gain some wealth. I mean, I'm not even going to go up into the housing crisis and how criminal that was. But we gotta come up from that. But I am evolving our strategy to include some mobility work, as well as digital equity, those barriers that Detroiters are facing that are keeping them from being competitive. We want to eliminate those barriers.
When I think of the neighborhood that I was born in, near Livernois and Grand River, and the people who live there, one of the really confounding problems we have is people are renting in substandard properties that other people own. They would like to stay in the neighborhood, but there aren't good houses for them to buy necessarily in our neighborhood, right? The houses that they're renting are in bad shape because the people who own them don't take care of them. But they would buy, and they would like to stay. And there's got to be opportunity to do that with that population. I feel like that's the population that we are most at risk of losing in some way in Detroit. I wonder what your organization thinks about how we solve those problems, right? Turning renters into owners, but doing it in places where the inventory that's available to buy maybe isn't where it should be.
Yeah. Well, so LISC nationally has a lot of effort, or puts a lot of resources and effort towards home ownership and home ownership education. And quite honestly, in Detroit, we got to bust down that system that is keeping people from acquiring those properties. We have to figure out how to change that trajectory. How do we take those packages of housing that are being sold, 50 to 100, 200 properties at a time being sold out overseas to overseas investors? How do we find and identify individuals in our community who may need some support? Because again, I'm a I'm a long-time Detroiter, and I've seen what has happened in our community and why it's happened, and I've experienced it as well. So how do we reverse that? I mean, that's the first piece. But how do we support people? And I was speaking with someone here on the island about how do we help someone or identify a group or an individual who may need some philanthropic support, who may need a little bit more resources, but how do we keep that property, those packages of property here locally? Yeah. Because at least people would have a chance to acquire them. I mean, this whole notion of, so that's one thing. And so I'm looking for that solution, actively looking for a solution for that. But then this notion of now we're talking about community land trusts again and giving people an opportunity to own the homes that are on these properties and putting these covenants in it so that people are able to keep them. But that's old. But how do we innovate that so that Detroiters are able to participate? Yeah. So those are things that I'm working on. I'm 7 months in, so give me a break. But ask me
We
in
may
2
give
months.
you a break. We may.
Or give me a solution. Because I'm open to it.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up community land trust. Antoine, I know that the city commissioned a study or the community land trust. Do you guys have an update? I mean, what did the city learn about community land trust, and is that something that the planning department is looking at as a potential solution in neighborhoods?
So we're still evaluating it. I think that it's something that we will pursue in some capacity. I think it's going to come down to what geographic parameters we use for that, right? The CLT has been employed nationally in a variety of settings, right? So oftentimes it can be neighborhood-centric. Oftentimes it could even be smaller than that, so a several block area. And so right now it's less about will we pursue it and more about in what capacity and in what form. I think Community Land Trust has shown to be a phenomenal asset and a means for some level of affordability protection in the community. But there are some realities that I think residents do need to be made aware of about, because it can put some level of a cap on wealth building. And I think that's something that needs to be talked about more. As a minor aside, I think Camille's being very modest. She's been running a mile a minute since she's been here 7 months. I've seen her laces. And she has her sneakers laced up well and doing a phenomenal job. And I want your listeners to know I've worked with LISC in a number of cities, and I'm incredibly excited about the work that LISC is doing here in Detroit as well.
So there's a broader question there, I think, which is the connection between property management on an individual basis, right, and land management, which I think is a community concern, and how badly we've managed the connection between those two things from a planning perspective in Detroit for a really long time, that we haven't thought as much about property management and how it connects to land management.
So that's a great question. I think that was a question. That's a great question.
I'm a guest here. I'm just talking.
Throw some things out there, but it's a phenomenal point, right? But one thing I try to remind people, we're in 2022. 6 years ago, the planning department had 7 staff.
I remember. I was
right?
there.
7, right? I have
for 139 square miles.
For 139 square miles. I have 40 FTEs right now, and I have 7 open positions, right? I'm adding people, and I need to probably add 2 or 3 more. Shouts to the city council. She'll appreciate you.
We're going to talk about that, too.
One thing that we have to do when we look at land management is that we have a significant amount of vacant land. I talked earlier about we are employing and looking at a vacant land strategy. Part of that strategy will be the maintenance of that land, right? And so it's a collaborative effort between ourselves and the General Services Department. We need to increase not only revenue but strategies to be able to manage that appropriately. And it's ironically a relatively new problem, right? Because we've the Duggan administration has done a phenomenal job of demolition, and so we have cleared a lot of the blight that existed, both residential and commercial, but now we have to do something with that. And so we're in the very beginning stages of really defining what that management will be, but you're absolutely 100% correct. There is a shared effort that will need to happen between the public sector and our private individuals.
Talk about some of the synergies that you all see between the city of Detroit and LISC. I know in the SNF neighborhoods, what's central in those planning studies is a commercial corridor reinvestment strategy. Camille, you talked about providing on-ramps for economic development in neighborhoods. What do you guys, how are you guys working together, and how is the partnership or budding or crystallizing? What can we expect?
I'll take a stab. I'll take a stab. I'll take a quick stab. Yeah, yes. So there's a number of different ways that our goals align pretty strongly, right? You heard Camille talk eloquently about the provision and protection of housing, both single family and affordable. She has avenues and opportunities to affect those households directly, where we can provide kind of the overarching focus on that, right? And being able to say, we need to add it in these particular areas, we need to have this quantity and address it. And we're actively engaging with our residents, right? And then we can do work synergistically for Camille and her team about the actual implementation of that. Yeah. Then from an economic development standpoint, we're looking to, quote unquote, bring more businesses to our corridors or support existing businesses, and her team's working directly with those businesses. Yeah. And so those are just 2 very concrete examples of our partnership, and there are a number of ways. Camille, you can maybe talk more about those specifically, or even some others that I don't want to sit up here. They hear me all the time, so we want to hear from Camille.
But you're right. There's the housing program that we are partnering on, and it's a $65 million housing project, or housing program. I was actually adding mobility, having added mobility to
100%.
my economic development strategy. Already connected with Tim Slesser, the Chief Mobility Officer, and discussing how we're going to partner and incorporate the mobility aspects, more shared. There's a term that they call it. Other options for transportation, getting people where they need to go.
Yeah.
But doing so collectively and perhaps incorporating some of that into our projects, our housing opportunities. So we're always looking for, we keep, constant contact with the city of Detroit and LISC. We're, we're funding together, we're lending together, we're investing in commercial corridors together. We have a number of framework plans that we've developed in Corktown, in North End, in other parts of the G7, Gratiot 7 Mile area. And so there's always opportunities to connect, and we're very connected.
Sweet.
And we'll continue that. You'll see more mobility as well.
Yeah.
So it's expanding.
Love it. Antoine, the last time you were here, we talked a little bit about the imperative of the city having an updated master plan. We talked about what that would cost, and the budget amendment that the city council sent to Mayor Duggan, they allotted $2 million for a new master plan. So that's exciting news for a lot of folks, because that means that a lot of Detroiters, almost every Detroiter, should be touched by this. How is the planning department thinking about what implementation looks like, and when are y'all getting started?
I know that Orlando and many of our listeners are excited about the master plan. The master plan is something that is, first of all, it's a very comprehensive effort that, at its best, will touch every corner of the city. And so that we're talking an extensive engagement effort, and typically a master plan for a city of our size is a 18 to 24 month exercise. So it's a lengthy deal, right? Additionally, one of the things that we're doing as a department is not only beginning to define what that engagement process should be, but also doing an education not only internally but externally. So we're beginning to schedule with each city council member individually about what the master plan is, right? Also about what it isn't. Let me be very clear, right? We're not going to finish the master plan and the city changes in 24 months, right? So we want people to understand that. I've been meeting with planning directors across the country to learn about their best lessons about how their master plan process has been going. So we can make sure that this is not only effective, but also inclusive of residents across the city. And that's something that, as you well know, and I've shared numerous times, that we want to make sure we hit that button. And then lastly, I need a couple more people, right? I shared with the council as well as publicly that I will need a couple of people on my staff, ideally 3, that will work full time. They wake up and go to sleep thinking master plan, in addition to the participation of most of my staff. And so we're at the very beginning stages of defining what those roles will be. We're looking at probably beginning at some point next year, because, like I said, there's a tremendous ramp up that needs to happen for a master plan. But it's going to be one of the most exciting efforts the city has seen in a decade.
And yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just thinking, I can't wait to see what this master plan is going to.
It'll be fun.
Because going back to our partnership, what's stated in that master plan
I'm gonna call you.
Drive
You
some of
gonna
what
be-
we're doing here locally. So be sure to use that.
I'm not driving a car, I'm driving a bus.
Come on.
You're going to be in the
Take
bus.
me out.
I got you.
I want to be in the front.
But see that tension there between, okay, we need to move now,
Yeah.
and we need to make decisions now, but we need to take this time to go through this massive process of including everybody, coming up with a master plan. It's one of the things that we've dealt with this tension all for a very long time.
Stephen, that's a fair comment, and I tell people all the time, I can appreciate wanting to move immediately. But I learned, and when I say learned, it's something. This is not what I heard; it's what I know. You do better when you're able to have a plan in place. And pardon the pun, it's something where we have to be very intentional with our moves, so that we don't make the mistakes. We don't make the unforced errors, if you will, in the process. And so I'd much rather take the time to be very strategic with the implementation, as opposed to rushing headlong into something that we all agree could be very good, without the infrastructure in place.
Talk a little bit about some of the framework plans. I know that there is a bid out right now on the east side surrounding the Latis plant. What is that supposed to look like, and how are the rest of the framework plans going?
So the rest of the framework plans are going, they're at the very beginning stages, right? So we're going to begin planning study for the north end shortly.
Ooh, that's going to be fun over there.
It's going to be an exciting effort.
I wish our listeners could see Antoine smile.
It's going to be an exciting effort. We are releasing an RFP for one for Brightmoor. Right, so we're excited to actually, reach a part of our city where they're feeling unseen and unheard. So we're really excited about that. And then we're also going to roll out one for Midwest Tireman and one for Warren, Greater Connor Creek. Yeah. Right. So as you can tell, we're going to be across the city. And in areas that people don't quote unquote normally associate with as the shining examples of Detroit. And as we said earlier, we're going to be intentional to reach Joe and Mrs. Detroit, right? We gonna touch everybody. And those are communities that need to be heard from, and they're going to play a critical element in those planning efforts. And so all of those are coming out this year.
And what are the framework imperatives? I mean, are there certain metrics and buckets that you guys have to meet?
Yeah, there's certain buckets that we pull from, but we tailor them towards the desires of those communities, right? So, easy. North End's far different than Brightmoor.
Yeah.
In a variety of capacities.
Yes, for
right?
sure.
So, typically in a neighborhood framework study, we're looking at what do you want to see from infrastructure development? What do you want to see along your commercial corridors? What are your needs from a residential standpoint, either preservation or the creation of new housing? Do you have open space or park needs? Do you have mobility challenges? Are there safety concerns? What can we do from an economic development standpoint? We cover all of those criteria amongst perhaps many others that the residents may bring up, and then we begin to tier them not only from a prioritization, but also from a time scale. Like this is kind of a short-term kind of a solution. These are longer term. These are the fiscal realities of those, and then be able to come with a framework that can be a roadmap for implementation of actual strategies. And, we've had some real success. Obviously, everyone's familiar with the work that has resulted from the Livernois study, but, we've seen things in Kirchville, we've seen things on Van Dyke, we've got them on Joe Campo in Banglintown, Jefferson Chalmers, and so we're all over the city with some solutions, and we're looking to have some equitable solutions in these areas as well.
Cool. So, Camille, we're up on Mackinac Island for the policy conference. This is where government, business, philanthropy all gathers to talk about how we can meet challenges differently. I wonder if you could talk about what organizations like yours need that you're not getting from each of those sectors: government, business, which I would, in your case, talk about banks, and then philanthropy.
Well, so what are we not getting? That is a great question.
I was going to say, you might have too long a list.
Where do I even start? But right now is a unique time in our history, and to do some things very differently, to be innovative. Everyone is looking for the next new thing, but we still have people who are in need of just basic homes, housing.
All right.
So there's not enough housing. We've been talking about that, and how do we grapple with that? So that's one piece. This digital, the digital equity piece.
Digital access.
The fact that 50 to 70% of the households of Detroit don't have the right adequate Wi-Fi or systems in order to even compete. And I'm adding that to the strategy because that is a key component of building wealth. If you're not able to access housing or the application to apply for housing or application for school or to get into schooling, we can't compete. So what can we do better, or what more do we need? I mean, I'm looking for more neighborhood developers because I would love for the city, for individuals to really feel empowered.
Okay, I love
To
that. You
make
hear that, listeners?
Make a difference.
LISC is
in
looking
their-
for
yes,
neighborhood
looking for
developers.
neighborhood developers. We have some resources, we have information, and we have money. We want to help people who live in the community be able to be a part of the change that they want to see in their community. So there's always more of that could be had.
Yeah. Those developers need access to capital. that
Low cost
we
capital.
don't
Absolutely.
have right now.
Low
And we're
cost.
developing some new resources that are addressing those needs.
Yeah.
So I would love for people to really, don't hold on to how the old normal was. And as we create our new normal, let's just think differently, and let's just take some chances. So that's what I would love to express to the corporate philanthropy, to just take some chances.
No, that's a great. That's a
I
great
don't know
list.
what more I could say. Come on with your,
That's a big
with
list.
those ideas,
Strong
and now
list
is
right
the
there.
time
Yeah.
to implement some things, to do things differently, create our own new normal.
Oh, I love that. Create our own new normal. That's a nice button on the conversation. Camille Walker-Bakes, Executive Director of Detroit LISC, and Antoine Bryant, Director of the Detroit Planning and Development Department. Thank y'all so much
Such
for
a pleasure.
coming on the podcast.
All right.
All right.
My
Thank
pleasure.
All right, joining us on Authentically Detroit is the President and CEO of Forgotten Harvest, Kirk Mace. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
How you doing, Kirk?
I'm good, man.
Yeah.
I'm good. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah, you like being here on the island?
It's a great experience being able to network and see people and in particular right now to reconnect with people. We've all been apart from each other for so long. So this gives you a chance to actually get connected and spend a little time catching up with folks. So for that, for me, that's great. You're not supposed to actually, fundraise and stuff like that up here. So, it's not supposed to work like that. It's more like policy level conversations and stuff like that. So, the experience varies for me, but based on the theme, and
The theme this year is civility.
yeah, but
Give us-
it's also election year. So
Yeah.
underneath all of that, there's a lot of figuring out that kind of stuff. So, it's great just seeing people.
So last time you were on the podcast, we had a conversation about elections in the 13th and 12th district. But I love that you brought up the theme, and the theme for this year's policy conference is civility. How does that sit with you in 2022? What does that word
What you
mean
trying
to
to
you?
do? What you trying
I'm
to
just
do
asking
right
the
now,
question,
Darnell?
Kirk.
You trying to really get me to talk right
We
now?
got a solid 15 minutes, so let's talk.
Oh man, look, it does raise questions. Like who maybe I don't understand what the point of this civility conversation is. It seems like it's been a theme that's come up quite often now over the last 4 or 5 years. What is the advancement that we're trying to look for here, and who are we trying to actually be? Who are you talking about? Like when you say civility, who are you asking to be civil?
Yeah.
Because I feel like everybody here is like advanced level professionals that we're like getting washed over the same conversation. We absolutely
Yeah.
know how to be civil here. So is that like the conversation that you want to take to a greater community of people who are still disgruntled about where things are? And if that's the case, it comes off a little bit as like a victory thing, like we won already, so just calm down. If we're gonna move this thing forward, you at least need to act right. And depending on how you take it, and if you're not patient with being a patient listener with the whole conversation, it could be jarring, and it's just definitely some places to enter in to like resist against what this might sound like. But I'm learning in my old age to try to be patient with these conversations, but it's an old conversation. We need to get to the head of it.
Oh, patience. So let me ask you this. You are in the business of solving for food insecurity in Southeast Michigan, right? Like our residents who are struggling with hunger, civil about it? Are we asking them to be civil about it, or are we asking them to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, you getting down to the most basic, aspects of human nature, our carnality. You know, when somebody from our community or any community say, I got to do what I got to do, I mean, that basically boils down to, like, you know, you can't ever blame me for my survival instinct, right? And when somebody gets down to the level of survival, the last thing that they are carrying with them is civility.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it is, like I said, it is a conversation that kind of is relevant with those who have won.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's telling.
Yeah, it is.
You know, so that's the thing I would say about it. Where it becomes actionable in my life, in our lives, I can't say that, you know, it does anything to disrupt my reality of what I got to deal with every day. So that's where the patient comes in. You know, I'm here to just hear the conversation and see what's up. And I'm not, you know, if I was asked, like you asking me, if there's places to push back on it, this is my point of view. I think there are places to push back on it. And to your point, you know, the struggles people are going through right now are very real.
Yeah.
And if they're looking to leadership to provide them with the solutions or the pathways to take care of themselves or find their own power, it seems like that might be a premature conversation.
Some monumental news out of Forgotten Harvest. You guys just opened up a new facility. Tell us about it, Kirk. How's it going?
So we are working to transform Forgotten Harvest operational model. And we want to do that so that the food that we get from so many different places throughout Southeast Michigan can be properly mixed so that people who are receiving things from Forgotten Harvest get a equitable kind of distribution or mix of everything that we get on a daily basis. So by bringing everything back to our new facility, giving us the space and the ability to, like, you know, separate all the loads, categorize them based on the nutritional kind of values, and then build them back up with the data that we're collecting from the community to be able to make sure that, you know, at any place that we deliver, we have data that tells us how many people could typically there, but we're also building loads that each family that comes through the line are going to get, you know, going to be able to take home food that looks a lot more like what everybody took home during COVID.
Yeah.
You know, where we made sure that there was every food group represented and there was enough for the kids and everything. So we don't ever want to go back to the Forgotten Harvest where, you know, it's all fresh, it's all great, but it's only tomatoes, onions, and cabbage.
Yeah.
And next time, you know, come back for more. We're really trying to make sure that we reposition ourselves with our supply chain so that we can actually mix all that stuff to give people, you know, we create more value what we already have.
Yeah.
You know, so it's you know, big part of that process is complete. We got our new place. Now we need to just, you know,
On 8 Mile.
get the process in place, and from now on there'll be a new product coming out to everybody everywhere that gets Forgotten Harvest.
Yeah, talk about the need. Like, I'm in the grocery store lately and I'm looking at the price
It's
of
high.
chicken and
Yeah.
I'm looking at the price of milk and I'm like, okay, what else I got to do before
Yeah.
I decide to buy this milk and, you know, buy this chicken? Inflation right now is through the roof.
Yeah.
Are you seeing an uptick in the need, and what does that look
Absolutely.
like?
In a very, very visceral way. Like, people are like saying, yeah, food is costing a lot. And honestly, would you be surprised, people are actually getting hit with the gas prices
Yeah, that too.
as far as just in the pocket, right? And it, you know, I personally think that the psychology that you take to the grocery store or whatever is something that has so much flexibility in it, right? So you go to your grocery store and your regular product that you get is not there. You know, you quickly got to reach position of whether or not you get something else. Today you ain't got enough of that box. Maybe I get a smaller box.
Yeah.
You know, that milk is like, okay, maybe I get the half gallon. I'll come back next week and get another half gallon. I'll figure it out along the way. And in the store, on the point, you can make adjustments. I got $20. I might not come out with what I expected to come out with, but I'm gonna figure out how to make this $20 work so I can move forward. I think if you give people choices and you give people the ability to kind of make those dynamic choices, you know, they got the ability to figure it out. Gas prices, you know, what you gonna do? You know, you can only adjust like your mobility, and there's a certain baseline of mobility people need in order to survive, right? And then you take all the other factors into it. So I think just the pressures that are coming into people's lives right now, it's almost like a perfect storm, and we're not even in it deep as it can be yet, where gas prices are going up in a marked way. Food prices are going up in ways that we haven't seen in like 40 years in some instances. And it's only getting worse, and it's connected to our entire global kind of situation, which means it's not like this is temporary. This is like something that probably won't have a real solution to it for a number of quarters in front of us. So it's something that we got to pay attention to, and we got to realize that people can't just make adjustments so easily. So there's a lot more people who are saying, I'm gonna need help.
We're on the island where people can actually, do something about it. So tell me how you're sort of translating the needs of the people that you serve every day into the conversations that you're having up here. It is an election year. Folks are going to be headed to the booths in the primaries in August and the general election in November. What do those conversations consist of?
Well, I just got a chance to hear the press conference for the earned income tax credit that they're, proposing. And they're saying they're going from a 6% distribution to like 30%, if I understand correctly, which is a big boost for working families. It is something that will help people when they file their taxes to actually have a bigger tax return and then be able to manage that money properly to be able to actually have more of an actual bottom line that they can work with. I think things like that are definitely going to be able to help people. I also think that there needs to be a renewal of the conversation around what needs are for different people in different communities with different family sizes, right? So there's a tool that we were able to invest in at the Food Bank Council of Michigan. We reached out to the University of Washington Women's Center for Health Welfare and their School of Social Work. And we were able to actually get a self-sufficiency standard study done for the state of Michigan, which essentially breaks down the sustainability wage for a working family based on the county that you live in and based on your family size.
That granular. Yeah.
Now we can say if you live in Wayne County and you have you're a single parent with 3 kids, one at elementary, one in grade school, one in high school, you need to make this amount per hour in order to actually be sustainable without having to stand in the food line and without having to get any other subsidies. You might not eat dessert every night, and you might not have any money to save. But when you talk about somebody to be able to completely be on their own, there's a standard that actually, there's a formula that is actually available that many, many states now have actually gone through. The Food Bank Council of Michigan here commissioned it for the state of Michigan. It's been renewed one time. So there's a second version that's out. I think things like this earned income tax credit thing is going to call for us to actually do a redo and renewal of that formula for us. So I'll be talking about things like that with people up here.
Great.
Like from a policy perspective, how are we thinking about what the poverty rate means for people in Ann Arbor, Wayne County, and the UP? And is there a one solution for everyone past a certain income level? Because that's what you talk about, a family at an income level, this kind of stuff. But what kinds of families do we have dominating our state and our regions? And then what kind of wages are being paid on average in those places? And then like from there, let's have a real conversation on how we're going to end poverty.
Yeah, I mean, putting a demand on government to be more dynamic in how they come up with solutions is not always a one-size-fits-all.
That's right. So
that level of granularity is encouraging, Kirk.
Well, the devil's in the details, bro. We fighting the devil.
Yeah, so first off, you're one of my favorite people in the world.
Likewise.
You already know that. And so I always like to ask you whenever I get the opportunities, like, okay, what are you thinking about for whatever is next for you? I love this question for you because it's always different and it's always dynamic depending on where you are.
Yeah.
Kirk Mays in 2022 at the Mackinac Policy Conference. It is June, right?
Yeah.
What are you thinking about?
I'm in a space of reflection right now, deeply. One of the aspects of coming back and being connected with people, especially people from our community in the work, I don't know if people realize we've been very isolated from each other over these last few years. So coming back to people and saying, hey, I haven't get a chance to see you, but congratulations on all your accomplishments.
Yeah.
Great job on your new job. Great job on the new baby and all the stuff that we get a chance to actually hug each other over. You know what I mean? Facebook likes aren't the same thing. So,
Legit.
coming up here and getting the love directly from my folk that I grew up with in the work has definitely been able to like put me in this space of like additional reflection on all the accomplishments and all the things I've been able to serve through in our community over the last.
Which is needed. I mean,
Yeah.
like, do you take time to add weight to all that you've been able to accomplish and like just sit in it?
Not enough.
Not enough.
Not enough at all, because there's always something else to do, and I just don't get into it that much. But I've been the only child forever, so I reflect on stuff every day, but more as a continuous improvement for myself, and not in a gratitude and thankful space. I'd say right now I'm in a gratitude and thankful space.
Sweet.
I've been thinking about why I started this stuff like years and years and years ago. Like the first day I got up and was like, this is what I'm about to do with my life. I better go tell my mama. And she wasn't with it, and I was like, well, damn, I'm still about to do this, and what made me push through all of that and go against the grain of everything I guess I was raised to do is the stuff I've been thinking about. And honestly, man, I just gotta say, it's like a deep love for people, and it's a deep love for our people. And I still feel in some ways I haven't been able to accomplish the things that I wanted to do when I started.
Which is crazy to me because you've accomplished so much. But I get you. Yeah,
it was a bit of naivete because I thought I was going to be able to bring the whole culture together. And by now we should be having conversations about when we going to Africa. We done built up some economies here, and we got our stuff together. I thought we'd at least be down the road, to something more advanced, or maybe like where the Black Lives Matter conversation is. So there was a deep sense of I want to build up my community, not as a competitive piece, but more of a we still got a lot of value to add to this society, and we're getting more so take advantage of and manipulated than actually standing on our own to actually give our true gift to this world. And because of that imbalance, the whole world is actually waiting for us to get our stuff together. And I'm not hey, let me tell you something, fix this thing because it's unfair for us. I'm more yo, give me the thing, let me go fix it. And it's a lot to fix. Yeah. And after all these years, I'm just man, what more can I even do? And is there still a value I have for this community and my community? So I've been in this reflection, gratitude, it's not like nobody beating down my door and saying, hey, come do this next. I'm kind of a known commodity now. So man, I've been thinking about Africa and building economies there and entrepreneurship and all kinds of stuff. So I don't know yet, but whenever it is, I probably need your help.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, Kirk Mays is thinking, and that should be good news to anybody who is listening. Yeah. Man, I so appreciate your willingness to come on the show, man. Thank you so much, Kirk Mays. There are two people that I really, really love to hear talk about the giftings in Black folks and to talk about the city of Detroit as a whole. That's Candace Fortman.
Yes.
And that's you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the way that you all talk about Detroit as a place that is living, as a place that has heart. That's and right. So, and Black folk, I mean, it is.
That's right. Yeah, Detroit is special because of the people.
Yeah.
That's only it. That's the only thing. Everything else is a container for us.
Yeah. Woo. Kirk Mays, President and CEO of Forgotten Harvest. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, brother.
All right. And we are back on Authentically Detroit, and joining us is Councilwoman Latis Johnson, representing District 4. She is also the former Executive Director of Mecca over on the East Side and a former LEAP Sustainability Fellow at the East Side Community Network. Absolutely. Latisha, you've been around for a long time. Latisha, welcome back to Authentically Detroit.
Thank you so much. Always happy to be with you. I appreciate you bringing me back.
Always, yeah. We will, as long as you would come on, we would love to have you. So we're here on Mackinac Island. This is your first time on the island, right?
First time.
All right, give me your feedback. How is it? How you feeling about it?
I feel fantastic about it.
Yeah.
Beautiful scenery.
Yeah.
The weather is gorgeous. I've had some phenomenal conversations with folks.
Yeah.
Hearing great things. So many people, in this new space, in this new role, I realize how many people actually keep track of us and what we're doing.
Oh, yeah.
So I've had so many people. I mean, the Tuesday, I was standing on the porch, and I don't think I moved for about 45 minutes because I just had people coming up to me left and right to introduce themselves. So that was pretty neat That's, quite unique, but really, really surprised by the conversations.
Yeah. So there are a litany of things that I want to have you comment on. I think for me, what's top of mind right now is the mayor's conversation here on the island yesterday with Chief White, and it was a conversation about public safety in the city of Detroit, and Chief White employing data, employing certain forms of technology, ShotSpotter, the green light program to help identify criminal activity in neighborhoods. And so I want to get your reaction on two things. Number one, how are you feeling about the state of public safety in the city of Detroit? And then number two, just what did you think of the mayor's conversation with Chief White yesterday, and the mayor choosing public safety as the main Detroit representative here at a statewide conference as the focal point for his conversation about Detroit?
So, of course, in the city of Detroit, crime fluctuates. As the weather starts to warm up, we see more of it. We're realistic about that, and we know we have to address those things, the situations that occur. I think it's important for us to continue doing the work that we've been doing to work on preventing crime. And that's what I really like about Chief White. He's focusing on mental health, the co-response program, really connecting with young people, making sure that we reach them at a younger age to keep them out of that criminal element. And so we're aware of that. So we've been doing some things. We supported the contract to acquire 10 mobile metal detector units so that when we have large events, we are able to keep the public safe, right? So we're thinking about all of those things. I don't think it is the face that we want to put on the city of Detroit, especially with all of the development that we have happening, with all of the programs, all of the positive things that we have going on. I do know that Skills for Life was talked about, touched upon briefly. I think that is a phenomenal program where we are helping to train residents and connecting them with employment once they've been trained in various areas. We're looking at how do we address affordable housing? How do we look at the Detroit Land Bank's inventory to create affordable housing units while also bringing in developers for mixed income
And none
housing.
of that was touched on.
It wasn't.
No.
It wasn't. And I think that was a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
But I'm also realistic about how the media can be utilized to help encourage folks to do different things. And you know what, I will say this, I think even the newer council members are aware of how that works.
Yeah, it's just interesting to me. I think number one, to come here, we are acting in proxy for folks who cannot be here because it's really cost prohibitive, to be here. And so it is an island of privilege. It is an island of the corporate and political elite, if we're being upfront and honest about it. And so, to get up and talk about, Black and brown people in the city of Detroit doing bad things on this stage just felt a little odd to me, right? So I agree with you, on the missed opportunity front. You and I served for a long time on the 5th Precinct Community Relations Council. So you've been doing this work a long time.
A long time, and recognize the opportunities that we have in front of us. And so, like I said, I think Chief White, he comes up with some great ideas. I know that, we focus a lot on data. And when we talk about ShotSpotter, because it is in one of my precincts that I share with District 3, we don't quite have the data yet. The technology has been introduced, but let's give it some time so that we can see that it's effective before saying let's put $7 million into it.
Yeah.
We have up until 2024 to utilize ARPA funding. Technically 2026 to use it, but to identify programming and identify where it's going by the end of 2024. So we have some time to recognize whether or not
And talk
ShotSpotter
about
is an
the
effective
efficacy
tool.
of that tool before
Absolutely.
we continue to invest millions and millions of
To
dollars
expand it, right.
in this tool. And so, the mayor was talking about, I think Stephen Henderson, our executive editor at BridgeDetroit, was asked the mayor about, residents' feelings around feeling surveilled with technology like ShotSpotter, the green light program, and even these new, large portable, metal detectors. Where do you stand on, comments that are on the public record at council meetings around folks, pushing back on this sort of technology?
I did hear the response about surveilling people in the public. And I think, there's a fine line. We get that some of it needs to be done for you to be able to identify and track folks that are committing crimes. But at some point, you have to stop it, right? You have to say that we're pushing too much. There is something that is slated to come before us that is additional technology that can essentially monitor a person from one traffic light to the next and just follow them.
Wow.
Exactly. It becomes extreme.
Yeah.
It becomes extreme, and you feel like you are,
especially in Detroit,
caged
when you
in,
got a
like
whole
you
bunch
can't
of
get
people
away.
riding dirty because insurance is cost prohibitive. I mean,
Absurd.
what does that mean, right? Even with the de-insurance. I want to talk to you about, as our listeners get to know you more by the decisions you make at the council table, the votes that you cast, and the comments that you make. I want to talk to you about, your philosophy, how you view the philosophy and the separation of powers between the executive branch and the legislative branch in the city of Detroit. For you, what is the role of city council, and how do you see that legislative branch interacting with the executive branch in the mayor's office?
So one of our primary roles, of course, is to set the budget for the city. Of course, we do that in collaboration with the administration. Budget season was very interesting. I, quite honestly, was a little deflated after budget season because historically, previous councils would amend the mayor's proposed budget by 2%. We have 6 new council members, and we amended it by 1.05%, considering we had a $130 million surplus. And unfortunately, I think we were all so new to the process that when it was stated, if you move this, it'll be detrimental to this department. But I think it was a lesson learned.
Yeah.
It was certainly a lesson learned. And so moving forward, I think we will look at making sure that our priorities are funded just as well, and making sure that we identify initiatives that we both can support, that city council and the administration can support, but elevating our priorities within all of this.
And I'm seeing something, at the council table that I haven't seen in years, and that is really this tension that I think council is supposed to have with the mayor's office around ordinances and initiatives that the council wants to pass, or things that the mayor wants to get through. The back and forth around the decision for who would be corporation counsel, the right to counsel ordinance, and the back and forth, around that. And that is a win for a lot of the progressive circles. How do you see that?
I think it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And just know that there's so much more to come. There is so much more to come. I mean, we're having some great conversations because I think, and not to say that previous councils weren't connected to community, but I think we are so deeply connected to community that we can identify some of the challenges that we've seen.
It reminds me of the councils that I experienced growing up. Like
Absolutely.
I'm like, I was like, Mary Ann Mahaffey would be cussing somebody out by now. It's like, what is going on? With this council. So you mentioned budget season a little earlier, and I want to talk to you about the amended budget that you all sent to Mayor Duggan that he signed that allotted $2 million for a master planning effort here in the city of Detroit. Not too long before that was passed, I interviewed the director of planning, Antoine, Bryant, and asked him, number one, exactly how much it would cost, and he gave that figure around $2 million. But also the political will for a master plan, and he sort of just stated that it's really a budgetary and staffing issue, and so council was like, okay.
We heard you.
Yeah. So talk about the need for a codified master plan in the city of Detroit.
Gosh, so just thinking about District 4 and the communities that I serve, when I look at, we appreciate the planning studies that have been done thus far.
The framework studies, yeah.
But when you look at even District 4, there are three that have been completed. That's considerably less than 50% of District 4. There's one that is slated to happen this year, and then hopefully another one in the upcoming fiscal year. But when you look at it citywide, it is roughly between 40 and 50% of the city that has gone through the process to identify how to move these communities forward. What does that say to the remaining 50 to 60% of the city that has not been touched?
Yeah.
So maybe a week and a half ago, I serve on the Planning and Economic Development Committee. We actually had DTE come before us and want to install a new substation across the street from the old Kettering High School, which is the Dakota plant.
Yeah.
And so that's near and dear to my heart because I'm a pioneer. I graduated from Kettering. And
Deep East Side. Go ahead.
Right? And so when I asked the question whether or not the substation was primarily to make sure that the Dakota plant had adequate power to function, and the answer was no, it said to me, what's the plan? What's the greater plan for this desolate area that is predominantly vacant land that we unfortunately don't know anything about? If we had a master plan update, we would have some idea of where development was moving in that particular neighborhood. And that would be the case throughout the entire city.
Yeah, so a master plan essentially is supposed to touch every resident.
Every neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so there has been, I'm switching gears, there's been a proposal being floated around, and it's, I talked to Fred Dorhall earlier this morning about a split rate tax proposal. How are you thinking about something like that?
So actually, member Santiago Romero and I have joined forces and created the Equitable Development Task Force. We have 3 goals. One is to bring in a split rate tax.
Can you tell our listeners what that means?
So essentially, I just came from a phenomenal session a short while ago, and Invest Detroit is doing a tremendous amount of research around a split rate tax and how beneficial it'll be for Detroiters. Our task force will do the research and look at how it affects Detroit residents. Essentially, it'll help to reduce property taxes for homeowners. And it was indicated that it would be roughly 18%, an 18% reduction, because I think so many people recognize that Detroit property taxes are some of the highest in the country.
And the way and the way that we are asking people to pay property taxes in the city of Detroit, summer taxes and winter taxes, and you get this one big, huge. People don't pay bills like that. They don't pay large lump sums of premiums.
That's true. But let me say this, in all fairness, you can now pay them monthly.
Okay.
You can go through the DivDad
I don't think
kiosks.
people knew that.
A lot of people probably don't know that,
so
unfortunately.
Give us the resource. How do we pay that?
So you can actually do it via the city's website.
Okay.
If you go on to DetroitMI.gov and you click on pay, I think it's pay your bill or pay, and then you can click on your taxes. You enter your address or your parcel ID number, and you can make monthly payments. You can also
like you're paying
do it
down a premium.
Yes,
love it.
You can also do it through the DivDad system, where they have these kiosks like in Rite Aid and other stores throughout the community. You can go and make your monthly payment there.
Wow. So the proposal that you heard would reduce residential property taxes by a significant amount, but it'll keep the property tax rate on land the same or raise it?
Correct. So it splits the two.
Okay.
And the whole, I don't know if I want to say the goal and the vision is to, because I was just talking to a state legislator, is to make it so that while we have the difference where land and property are taxed separately, where we can adjust the tax on the land, ultimately is guiding the way to supporting community land trusts, where nonprofit entities will have the ability of being exempt from that land tax.
Got it.
So that's a secret that now everybody
Breaking
knows.
news. Breaking news.
But we are moving in that direction. So
Nice.
the Equitable Development Task Force are 3 goals.
And who sits
are
on that
to-
task force?
So it's member Santiago Romero and I who are leading it. We have a number of people that have reached out to us with some interest in being involved in it. And so we will kick it off this month in June. We're reaching out to those individuals now to ask them to be part of the core group.
Nice.
And then we will start to invite others to join the conversation. But our 3 goals for this year are doing the research and really identifying how split rate tax impacts Detroiters, a community land trust, as well as looking at amending the community benefits ordinance.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is that breaking news too?
Equitable development. That's what we're focused on.
Well, I was interviewing Antoine Bryant a little bit earlier about community land trust, and the city commissioned a study on it, and I asked for an update on that. And so they're also looking at it. So are you guys exploring synergies with the planning and development department around what that can look like in the city of Detroit?
So I've had preliminary conversations with the administration, and the reply I've gotten back was essentially that there are other ways to get to affordable housing. And so that to me means that it's not so palatable for the administration, but we're looking to kind of push the envelope and just recognize how it can be. And recognizing that we are supportive of mixed income development, as long as we can be intentional about affordability.
Yeah. So we got about 5 minutes left. I want to talk to you about sustaining the right to counsel fund, right? There is a lot of back and forth with the law department about the legality of diverting general fund dollars to that, right? You guys will have to sort of figure out how to keep that sustainable. Ideas, asks out, like how is this going to be sustained in the long run? Because people need it.
We certainly know that people need it, and we're appreciative of the $12 million investment from, I never know what to call them,
the Gilbert Family Fund.
There you go.
There you go.
the Gilbert Family Fund. We have allotted $6 million for the first 3 years. And so, I think it will be telling to see the first full year, how much is actually utilized for the program. And we can come up with some ideas on creating funds in different ways that helps to fund this right to counsel. So my team and I, we've been having some conversation around what that looks like, where funding can come from, and I don't want to share at this point, but we are having those conversations just to make sure that we continually have dollars to be able to support right to counsel.
Yeah, I got to ask, Letitia, I got to ask the questions.
Absolutely.
And so I want to ask you about tracking expenditures for ARPA, right? A small percentage of the money has been spent. We know a lot of it has been allocated. Are we going to meet the deadline?
We will.
Okay.
Absolutely, we will.
All right. And I'm channeling Donna Givens-Davison with this question. She's been asking everybody about, the theme of the conference being around civility. How does that sit with you? How does civility sit with you? And how do you interpret that?
So when I first hear it, it makes me think of where we are on a national level and everything that's going on in politics. I think it's important. I think it's important to have dialogue. I think it's important to be respectful. But also, I always think it's important for us to be authentic, to be authentic with
Authentically Detroit.
Exactly. make sure we know who we are and we're sharing who we are with everyone. But I, above all, believe that we can be respectful in doing that.
Councilwoman Letitia Johnson, representing District 4, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.